Hello, everybody, and welcome into our second edition of Championship Discussion. Yesterday, we brought you the championship discussion with the 6A Division II state champs, the Bixby Spartans. Today, we are in Wagoner, Oklahoma, to discuss the Class 4A state champions, the Wagoner Bulldogs. I am Michael Knight, the managing director of OK Gridiron. This is the head coach, Dale Condict, of the Wagoner Bulldogs, and this is the Class 4A state championship. The Wagoner Bulldogs had an impressive run to the state title. After week 5, some people were skeptical if you guys were even going to make the playoffs, sitting at 1-4. You go all the way to the state title game and win it. First off, Coach, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. And we had a rough start, but we knew we were playing very quality teams, and we weren't getting beat in a way that was discouraging. Really, a lot of times it was a way that was more, fueling the fire, because we were losing some really close games to teams that we knew we had the opportunity to beat, that were ranked teams. So, we felt like if we would continue to improve and find a way to get into the playoffs, and we'd have as good as anybody to make a run. And with a young team, it took us a little time to get all the pieces in the right place, but this team was very coachable, a great team to be a part of. I just had one of the best times of my coaching career this year, and made that magical run come November and December.
Now, I'm very familiar with your career. I actually went back after the 1-5 start. You haven't had a start, or 1-4 start, excuse me. You haven't had a start like that in your time here at Wagoner. What was the discussion after that loss to Cassia Hall? Did it turn every future district game into a playoff game, so to speak, thinking of it as an elimination game?
Well, yeah, we said we got to go win the last 5. We win the last 5, then we thought we'd probably end up third at the time if we were being realistic, but at least we would be in. And as close as we played Cassia, and then we had a 2-touchdown lead on Fort Gibson late in the game, and they came back and beat us right at the very end. So we knew they were one of the top teams in 4A. So if we could get into the playoffs and maybe have the opportunity to play one of those teams again, or whoever, we've made a habit of winning the first round game. So if we could get that far, then it's anybody's game. And because of different circumstances, we go from 6-4 to 7-3, and
right.
And then end up with a district championship and 2 first round or 2 home playoff games, first and second round. So it just goes to show you just keep plugging away and keep going. You never know what might'll happen, and this team has been very relentless. They never quit, they never gave up, and they kept going.
We'll talk more about this season and the playoff run, the state championship game itself against Oologah, which I think came as a bit of a surprise to a lot of people around the state. Not that you guys won, but the fashion that you did it, considering you had lost to Oologah earlier this year, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I want to go back before the season. You knew how young this team was going to be. Did you expect to be able to make a run at this state championship this year so soon with all these young pieces around you?
Probably realistically, we felt like we could be one of the others. And that's being said, that going in, I felt like Anadarko was just going to be a lot better than everyone else. And I felt like we could be one of the others in that next tier of teams by the end of the year. I knew our sophomore class was extremely talented. Of course, we didn't project what Nakia Jones was going to be able to bring to the table, which really opened us up offensively. But, it's injuries and things like that happen, and next thing you know, Anadarko's out. Now it's anybody's game, and that really continued to boost everybody's confidence.
Now let me ask you this, because now we're going to fast forward to the playoffs. You meet Metro Christian in the semifinals instead of Anadarko, a team that has knocked you guys out in the semis the past 2 years. Christmas is right around the corner. Are you going to give Coach McCoy a Christmas card saying thank you for knocking out Anadarko?
I tell you, Metro Christian was a very good football team, and not just offensively. I know they get a lot of credit for what they do offensively, but they played with such tremendous effort and did a lot of things defensively that discouraged us, and as a play caller, discouraged me. It was very difficult to consistently move the ball against them, but they did a great job. And Anadarko, you could tell on film, they'd lost some guys and were a little bit out of sync, and that game could have gone either direction. Our game with Metro could have gone either way, and luckily we had a freshman that decided to go make a huge play and win the game, and then the rest is history. So Yeah, it didn't hurt our feelings any though that we didn't draw Anadarko one more time because they obviously have the talent to beat anybody on a given night.
Now let's talk about the state championship game. You knock off Oologah in impressive fashion. You knew what you had on your squad going into this matchup, but Oologah had the head-to-head. Now, I know that they had to forfeit it after the fact, but on the field, Oologah beat Wagoner in Week 4. Did you discuss Week 4 at all prior to facing the Mustangs? Did any of that come up into discussion? And what was the preparation like for the state title game?
Yeah, we studied that film very hard. Went back and just watching individual matchups. We had a couple of linemen that were out of that game that really hurt us. I felt like just because they were a big physical team, and those P.J. Hubbard and Nathan Ashley both missed the first time we played, and then Jacob King, who's a good outside linebacker, missed the first game when we played them, and Chris Murray. So we knew we had some guys out that was part of the problem. We just never could get in sync. Didn't feel like we played our best game that night. Made some big mistakes in the kicking game. So yeah, we did. We talked about the first time. I felt like they were more physical than us, and we made sure our kids saw it on film and saw that we didn't go and play the way we're capable of playing that first time. And felt like we saw some things on there that worked that we could work off of, and some things that didn't work, and players we needed to try to avoid going into the second matchup. So it was almost like we were able to counter move what they did the first time.
Not around Wagoner has this guy been underrated, but A.J. Freeth around the state has been a guy who maybe wasn't looked at to be a playmaker because he was overshadowed by Lawrence Evett and the fantastic ability that he had. Lawrence graduated. A.J. stepped into more of a playmaker role this year, and he takes the opening kick back for 6 to start the state championship game. What can you say about him, his performance in the title game, and just the career that he's had?
He's a very electric player, and we knew he was kind of a secret weapon going into the season. A lot of people had not heard about him. We've had some really good skilled kids. Lawrence, Hayden Ford was a good receiver for us last year, so A.J. wasn't a huge part of what we did on offense as a sophomore, but we knew from the summer and the way he ran during track season that he was going to be a very electric player. But probably felt like every week he was probably the best athlete on the field. And I think probably what happened on that opening kickoff, their kicker, I'm sure, mishit the ball. I know I've talked to Coach Craig, and they had an assignment to not kick to number 3. And you can tell kickers that all you want,
yeah.
But until you kick a football, sometimes you just don't know where it's going to go. And he mishit it, and it skipped along there. And when he picked it up, our offensive coordinator, Nick Humphreys, up top said, they're in trouble, because he could see things opening up, and he broke the big return. But he also had 3 punt returns for touchdowns on the season. He had an interception return for a touchdown. I think he averaged over 20 yards of punt return, so it's almost a waste of your time to punt to him. And then he scored he scored several touchdowns receiving. I think he had close to 800 yards receiving and 400 or 500 yards rushing. So I think 6 interceptions on the season. So he contributed in so many ways. And
did he sell any popcorn at halftime, playing the band?
As quick as he is, he might have done that and got back to the sideline in time for second half. But he had a great year as a junior, and boy, we're excited to have him back for another year next year.
I mentioned how dominant the performance was. The game was almost over at halftime. It was that type of game. Wagoner just came out, led by AJ's opening kick return, really popped Oologah in the mouth. Did you expect that kind of performance in the week leading up to the title game? Did you know that, if we, click on all cylinders, we have this ability?
Well, I knew that, we expected to win. I really thought the game would probably be a lower scoring game. Both teams play really good run defense. They probably had the best run defense we'd gone against all year. So I thought the game would be a little bit more low scoring, but I felt like at the end of the night, we would have a couple kids that were better athletes that were going to make the big play. But I think the first 3 minutes or so really set the tone for the entire game, and probably the little more out of control it got, the better it was for us. No different than a fast break basketball game.
Right.
With the athletes we had, we felt like that would be in our favor. So we had the big return. They had a big pass play right off, and I think then we turned around and scored in 2 plays. So. We liked the fact that it was getting a little bit hectic there early. So But we did expect to win. I knew that against Weatherford we ran the ball really well against their defense. They had a great run defense, and they were bigger, and we had some success. So I thought that there was a possibility that Uligal was very similar to them defensively, better at linebacker, but very similar up front, that we might could have some success like that, but not probably to the extent that we did.
We've already talked about A.J. Freeth. I want to talk about one sophomore, and if you would have asked me back in August or July that we'd be sitting here and I'd be talking about a sophomore's performance this year for you guys, I would say it's K.J. Lee after seeing his freshman year last year. That's not who I want to talk about right now. I want to talk about your quarterback, Mr. Rodriguez. Did you know that he was going to have this type of season back in August, or is it something that he just continued to get better and better each week?
Well, he definitely got better every week, but he actually didn't play as well as I thought he should early. The first few games, he struggled a little bit, I think, with confidence. And I sat down and I told him, I said, Malcolm, you're the quarterback, and we've decided that you're going to be the guy, and we're going with you until the end. So we'll just relax and have fun and play, because he's a great competitor, a great athlete. He's always been able to throw the ball around, even when he's a little kid. I remember watching him in Little League games. He had a really strong arm and knew he could throw it around. So probably statistically he probably did much more than I even anticipated. But I've really and it's been a while since I felt that comfortable with our passing game, and that was for him and the two receivers that we were developing, and then his brother out of the backfield. It really gave us a lot of confidence to continue to work on that. And heck, the two receivers are kind of like, I told him, treat them like grenades. You just throw them up close and they'll get it. And he started figuring that out. And he's a quick learner. He's a very intelligent kid, very competitive, and he's not bad a runner. We didn't run him a whole lot because I didn't want to get him hurt, but that's something in the future I think we'll continue to develop is his run game.
Treat him like a grenade. I haven't heard that type of analogy.
Yeah,
when
you say get a grenade close.
Yeah,
it's the way it is. Throw that ball close to him, and
hey, it works.
It works.
It works, especially with A.J. Freeth, a good-sized receiver, fantastic at catching those jump balls. Let's talk about Malcolm's older brother, Roman. Fantastic career here at Wagoner. Really stepped up over the last couple of years. Fantastic career, and he caps it off with a state championship.
And I thought that night he looked like the most determined guy on the field. He just, there were so many times he was just refusing to go down. He was going to find a way to win that game. And then late in the game, me and all of our offensive coaches continued to say, just give it to Roman. He's a great ball security. He's going to fight for yardage. It's hard to stop him for less than 4 or 5. And, he took some runs that could have been negative gains and made big plays out of them. He caught a route out in the flats. It should have been a 2-yard loss, and I think he made 5. So he was doing things like that throughout the night. And I felt like our team really, he was the leader of our team, and in a lot of ways we took on his personality, and that was, we were going to be tough. We didn't have to say a whole lot about it, and we're going to go about business and get the job done and do it with the right attitude, and that's the kind of kid he is.
Now let me ask you this. This is a question that I always find interesting. Wagoner wins the state championship in 2011. They go the last 2 years losing in the semifinals to Anadarko. You win it here in 2014. How does this championship compare to the one you won in 2011?
2011, there's a different feeling you have going into a season. A lot of pressure that year. We'd been the year before, lost in overtime. It was, a devastating loss when you get that close to something you've wanted for so long. So, and we knew that senior class in 2011 was so good. So there was a lot of pressure on us that year to perform and to get the job done. This year was much more relaxed. Nobody, it was kind of throw caution to the wind, and I think that helped in the end as we played with a lot of, just here we come. We have nothing to lose at this point. Nobody expected us to be here, so big difference.
Wagoner finishes the season with the state championship. A lot of people didn't expect it at the beginning of the year, but they are the state champions. They return a lot of players to next year's squad. How soon do the Wagoner Bulldogs start preparing for a repeat?
We'll give them this week and next. We don't do a whole lot, and then we come back in January. You'll be started on the next one. Whether they're in Of course, some of them are already in winter sports today. Some of them are playing basketball game tonight. But those that are in the off-season program, we'll hit it pretty hard and heavy come January. And, you soon have to kind of, let that one go and start working for the next one, because next year we'll be back. I've been through this before. I know it'll be the pressure, because I know what the expectations are going to be, and we welcome those expectations, because if you ever get your program to where you want it to be, that's going to happen. So, I know there'll be a lot of excited people going into the 2015 season about Wagoner football.
And Wagoner has become one of the programs that year in and year out you expect not only to make the playoffs, contend for district championships, and possibly contend for state championships. They won it this year. We'll see if they can do it again in 2015. Coach, thanks for taking some time this afternoon talking with us here on OK Gridiron. Congratulations on the state championship, and we'll be talking again. If we're talking again this time next year, we might have two of these sitting up here.
That'd be great. We've got plenty of room in the trophy case.
Yeah, the Bulldogs, they won their second state title with a victory over Oologah at Broken Arrow High School on Friday night. He's the Wagoner head coach, Dale Condict. I'm Michael Knight, the managing director of OK Gridiron, and this has been another edition of Championship Discussion here on your home for high school football, OKGridiron.tv.